In this world, there are things that people mustn't touch. Who cares? This quote portends an important lesson about the actor defying something which is forbidden by not heeding the warning, and then unleashing something potentially fey and ominous upon the world. Serving as one of the main themes of today's game, Baten Kaitos, Eternal Wings and the Lost Ocean. Created by Monolith Soft and tri-Crescendo, and published for the Nintendo GameCube between 2003 and 2005 across all territories, Baten Kaitos is a niche game that not many of you may have heard of. That is, of course, until the remaster was announced for the Nintendo Switch, which is slated for release on September 14th, 2023. I have fond memories of playing this game back in the heyday, so decided that this would be my debut GameCube review. Is the game worth playing today? Let's find out. Rather than contemporaries that force us into the shoes of a protagonist, Baten Kaitos gives us an element of agency by allowing us to play as ourselves. Somewhat, in the form of an observing spirit who is being bound to Callus, a wandering man who wakes up one day in the village of Sebalrai, on the outskirts of Sadal Sud. Callus is unique in that he only has one wing. You see, in the mythos of Baten Kaitos, all humans have what's called wings of the heart. These physical wings are said to be the manifestation of one's soul, and display as a projection of the individual's personality. Callus is abnormal in that he does not share this genetic trait, and is the only known person in the world to exhibit this condition, by having only one wing. Due to this, he was bullied as a child, causing him to push others away in his adult life, finding it difficult to trust, and only doing things that serve his own interest. We join Callus as he awakens in a small clinic with amnesia. He doesn't know where he is, or why he's there, and is told that he was found unconscious in the nearby forest. Being the reckless person that he is, despite being told to stay away, he decides to return to the forest where he was knocked out. In the depths of the woods, he runs into a woman named Xehla, whose party had just been dispatched by a wild beast. Going against his nature, he decides to step in and help her, and manages to get caught up in the machinations of the End Magnus. 5 great cards that embody the essence of a god who once was said to have destroyed the world. I hear you thinking, if a card can hold a god, then what else could a square of foiled cardboard contain? All living things are made up of matter. Humans, plants, animals, even inanimate objects. What if you could capture these essences into cards to call upon whenever you wished, from the convenience of your back pocket? Would the ease of such an act belie the question of morality around whether the action could be justified? Whenever a scientific act is considered a step toward the betterment of humanity, you can bet your bottom dollar that the grey line will be crossed. Where initially only inanimate objects would be permitted to be contained, it would not be long before researchers started investigating the effects of such methodologies on bone, sinew, and flesh, behind the closed doors of a laboratory funded by those with the means to do so. You know where I'm going? Baten Kaitos, within all the frivolity and otherworldliness of its setting, hides a deeper message if you examine it through a different lens. A commentary on the recklessness of those in power, who only seek to better their own circumstances before those of the common people. A mirror of our own world, if you will. An ocean of meaningless faces, mired by the blade of some few who ultimately drive the fate of our Earth. It would be remiss of me to continue this review without first talking about one of the major mechanics of Baten Kaitos that sets itself apart from its contemporaries. As mentioned before, in this world, the essence of objects can be captured within cards called Magnus. Magnus has completely proliferated every corner of the world, and eases the pressures of everyday living. Weapons, equipment, magic, food and sundries. There almost isn't a thing that a Magnus cannot contain. There are over 1,000 Magnus that you can collect over the course of the game, some serving a purpose, others being mere trinkets, and even more being very missable, so you must be careful. Whilst people use Magnus to ease their daily burdens, there also exist 5 exceedingly powerful Magnus known as the End Magnus. It is said that the End Magnus not only hold the essence of a god, but is also the power that keeps the 5 major continents aloft. In this way, the End Magnus serve a similar purpose to the lifting verses of the Grand Stream Saga. However, they are tangible as opposed to a song, and do not require ceremonies to retain their power. The plot of Baten Kaitos revolves around the possession of these valuable cards, and the threat of calamity that hangs overhead were they to be united and their powers unleashed. As mentioned before, in the world of Baten Kaitos there are 5 continents that remain floating in the sky above an abyss of poisonous miasma that has blanketed the barren earth below, the result of a savage battle of the world's ancestors against the wicked god Malpertio. Each island retains its independence with a unique culture and little rivalry or conflict. However, of late things have begun to change as a rumour of the End Magnus begins to touch the lips and honey the ears of those in high positions. It is said that whoever collects all 5 will be gifted boundless power, and deny it as they may, this has perked the curiosity of interested parties. After Callus and Xehla accidentally release the first End Magnus in the wooded glade of Moongale Forest, they soon become the target of those that seek the gift of the End Magnus, and thus together begin a journey which takes them across the 5 great continents and beyond. The cast of characters that join Callus on his adventure are colourful, from a variety of backgrounds and islands with varying demographics and topography. In addition to Xehla, a girl who is accused of posing as a maid to steal a rare artifact from a pro-Machina empire, we are joined by 4 other companions. Gibari, a fisherman from Nashira who loans Callus and Xehla a boat, ultimately getting swept up in the journey. He is the oldest party member and often keeps Callus within the group through muscle and coercion. Liud, a diplomatic representative from the nation of Alphard, posted to Diadem, who begins to question the motives of the Empire upon witnessing some dubious acts. Savina, a wandering mercenary who is waiting for a purpose, and our band of misfits might just have one for her. And finally, Mizuti, a strange being who wears a mask and speaks in riddles. They rescue the party from a space between dimensions, guiding them back to the world of the living, and eventually joining the quest. The diversity in characters and the weapons that they used was refreshing, and every character felt like they had a purpose to join the party beyond the initial impression they gave when first recruiting them. Of the 6, my favourite member was Gibari. He kept the party in line and on the right track with his optimism, slapping everyone around with his muscles and no-nonsense attitude. Whilst the game begins on the somewhat sleepy backwater island of Sadul Saad, Baten Kaitos takes us across other continents, which could not be any more different from each other if they tried. I really appreciated the extent that the developers went to make each floating continent unique, presenting a pleasant dichotomy in which you could contrast the peoples and environments and know exactly where you were at all times. Even within each continent, there were locations that were distinct and made me eager to encounter them. For example, the impermanence of Mira, existing as a floating illusion that never quite settles no matter which way you seem to turn your head, has a village made of confectionery, and then the next town is a village made of images that you'd find in a children's book. It was very inspired and impressed upon me greatly the stream of thought that video games can be considered as a form of art. Exploration of the various islands is done on foot through bustling cities and hostile territories. Within both, Callus may find glimmering chests that when opened impart new and interesting Magnus. I loved that Baten Kaitos put a large emphasis on uniqueness, echoing the distinct locations by having majority of the chests contain meaningful trinkets. In populated areas, exploring every nook and cranny can also impart Magnus, some rare and others one-offs, that would otherwise be missed by players less inclined to mash the confirmation button when screaming through people's houses and belongings. Time also plays a huge role in this game, as its inexorable march forward not only progresses the time on the game's clock, but also the state of certain Magnus. Some can change form and become something unexpected, whilst most healing food items will rot under the relentless march of time. You must always be mindful of the clock, and keep an eye on your character's decks, to ensure that they don't have dud cards that are being created by the passage of time. On the topic of decks, and no, I'm not talking about that of a ship, and I'm not a New Zealander so my accent isn't actually alluding to something that's a bit promiscuous, each character must manage the number of attack, defense, support, and healing cards that they carry, amidst a plethora of others that may seem to have no use at initial impression. Initially, this exercise of micromanagement was fun, and I enjoyed choosing which cards to assign to each character. But as my inventory grew, it became an exercise in frustration, scrolling through to find the exact card I was looking for. There are sorting options to rearrange the order Magnuses displayed in the inventory, which made things easier when assigning newly obtained cards. However, if you wanted to find a specific card, it could become very time consuming. Each character has their own deck, and the number of cards they can hold is determined by their class level. A higher class level allows a character to have a bigger deck size and hold more cards in their hand, but also reduces the amount of time that you have to choose the first card in battle when it is their turn. Each character also has a slight difference in speed when they are on the offensive, and I cannot tell you the number of times I ended up wasting one of Savina's turns by accident because I'd taken too long choosing the subsequent card in a combination. Coming into contact with an enemy on the field screen will draw your party into battle. A battle party comprises of a maximum of 3 party members, consisting of those you have placed at the top of the order screen. Battles consist of 2 types of phases, offensive and defensive. When it is a character's turn, you are given a choice of cards from the active character's hand and must string them together into a combination. Defensive turns consist of matching your defensive cards against the enemy's offensive ones to reduce the amount of damage that the targeted character receives. Speed is crucial, as some enemies are extremely agile when they go on the offensive, and I often found myself unable to block the first card in their attack. When I first got into the game, I really enjoyed the battle system, thinking it was ingenious and fun. However, the further I got into the game, I was finding that battles were taking more and more time, and eventually became a chore, making me feel lethargic and demotivated. In addition to the basic function of an offensive or defensive round, cards within a character's deck also have numbers in the 4 corners. Stringing these together successfully into a sequence will increase the base damage of the attack. For example, if you manage to pull off a 1 to 9 combo, or reverse, this amplifies the damage by 300%. You must use the C stick to select the card number by pressing the stick in the direction of the number on the card you wish to toss into battle. I did have some difficulties with this, where the direction I would press would not correlate with the number I wanted to use, resulting in broken combos, and this was not ideal, but it may be because I was using a third-party controller. In the later parts of the game, these combos become necessary to breeze through even some of the normal encounters, so this was very unfortunate. At play is also the element system, where different enemies can be weak or strong against the cards you are using, affecting the outcome of the offensive round. Additionally, some of the cards that may seem useless, when used in combination with another card, or a bunch of other cards, will birth a new Magnus that can be collected as a prize at the end of battle. There are so many combinations that can be completed that I never really focused on this aspect of the game due to the random nature of having to wait to get all the required cards in a character's hand, which just added more time to the game's clock and broke the pacing of the game. When you successfully dispatch a party of enemies, you will gain experience for each of the characters both in the party and also on the sidelines, so those characters will get a little bit less experience. Unlike contemporaries, this does not automatically level up your characters. To level up, you must visit the church, which is accessed via a blue save flower. Talking to the priest at the rear of this hallowed hall allows you to level up your characters using the experience that they have gained in battle. It's worth noting that stats received in a level up are random, and if you wait and level up a bunch at a time, rather than one by one, the batch level ups tend to part greater statistical gains. I tended to level up when I could, rather than waiting for multiple levels, though I didn't find that this disadvantaged my party all that much. Class levels can also be raised using character-specific Magnus. Each time you upgrade your class level, you lose some time on that character's clock for their battle turn, and you cannot revert to a previous class like you can revert party levels in Eternal Sonata. So you need to become used to choosing cards quickly, which disadvantages players that need a bit more time to think about what they want to do next. Whilst we are in the church, I should talk about the star map. Painted across the ceiling of the cathedral is a beautiful piece of art that is currently in a state of flux due to the constellation Magnus that comprised it having gone missing. Through the course of the adventure you may find pieces of this map, and upon returning these to the worried priest, will slowly begin to return the map to its former glory, granting you Magnus rewards in the process. In addition to this, in the city of Furcad, there is a man named Kuzman who is dying. He requests you to gather his family members so that they can see him off, and entrusts the party with his family tree. Whenever you find someone wearing a bracelet around the world, you can ask them to sign this family tree, and they will return to Kuzman's home. Some characters are easier to coax to return than others. I wasn't able to collect them all, but did enjoy getting rewarded every time a family unit on the tree was fully restored. Other side quests and content do exist in the game, smaller in nature, that require you to bring a certain quest Magnus to the person that asks for it. Sometimes this requires you to age the Magnus, and others it's as simple as finding what they have asked for. The number of quest Magnus that can be carried is limited by the number of blank cards that you have, so you need to be careful. I, for example, ended up having to carry around a giant fishbone for almost the entirety of the game, as if I'd released it, it would have been gone for good. For a game on the GameCube within the 6th generation of consoles, Baten Kaitos is very beautiful. Each location is distinct, and within every screen there are little details painted in that add character, such as butterflies chasing each other across the foreground, whilst wispy clouds pass flickering fronds in the background of Sebelrai, or the clouds of Diadem flowing and cascading like water. Every location was inspired, and got me wanting more with each step into the next screen that I took. The character designs are also nice and unique, and I appreciated that their faces showed in the dialogue box when they were speaking, with the image expressing their emotions as they spoke. The designs for each of the Magnus were also great, and I liked that they were all individual and unique, rather than reskins. Some people say that Motoi Sakuraba is a little hit or miss with his compositions, and I have noted myself that there is not much consistency to his work, as is the case with other greats such as Nobuo Uematsu and Koji Kondo. However, regardless of this disparity that appears in Sakuraba's music, which can be observed in other games, I can proudly say that Baten Kaitos has a lot of bangers. The tracks all suit the mood and atmosphere of the instances that they play, and there are also earwigs that will stick with you long after you have put the game down. I really enjoyed how experimental Sakuraba was for this game. The battle track, Chaotic Dance for example, was just so unexpected against the backdrop of the battles that you hear it in. As unexpected as it was, it had me bopping along and trying to listen to it again at any opportunity I could outside of playing the game. My favourite track, however, is called Divine White Bell and plays whenever you enter the church. The loud church organ, countered with the soft reply, is like a priest asking a non-believer why they have set foot upon the sacred ground, and the atheist simply responding meekly that they have made the decision that they wish to learn in this hallowed space. The priest then responds with the service of gravatus, awing the individual into servitude of God. Meanwhile, the chorus sings of yet another soul that has crossed the threshold of faith. It's so powerful and captures the spirit of the location, being that it's also where you level up your characters. Unfortunately, on the other end of sound design is the voice acting. Whilst the opening cinematic movie does have amazing voiceovers, which sets the tone for the game and gives you an idea of what to expect, the in-game voices leave a lot to be desired.
It's so peaceful.
All we can do is wait for one of them to take the bait.
Yeah, this is true.
From the moment that characters first open their mouths, through to the end of the game, within the story, it feels as though kids have strung 2 tin cans together and are playing telephone in an early 20th century preschool. It's disappointing that for everything else that's good about the game, it's marred by the tinny nature of the overall voice production. Some people have speculated that this is due to you being a spirit, hearing the voices of the characters between dimensions in a distorted way. But even so, it is enough to turn some people off wanting to play the game entirely. If it was supposed to be this way, I feel that the developers should have come out and said so, rather than leaving it to speculation. Baten Kaitos, Eternal Wings and the Lost Ocean was a highly experimental game that took risks in both its battle and design philosophies to create a unique experience that hasn't really been seen again since. With a unique cast of colourful characters that support each other's weaknesses, and locations that invigorate the imagination, the journey is one that could be enjoyed by many new players. It's a shame that the battles can sometimes draw out a little too long, that your carefully curated deck can be marred by aging foods that rot, or that the voice acting sounds distorted and tinny. However, these flaws are just a drop in the long-lost ocean. With the upcoming bundled re-release of this game, and Baten Kaitos Origins, I'd highly recommend you look into it, if you get the chance. By the way, this being the first GameCube game I've reviewed on this channel, I'd be keen to know what some of your favourite games from that console are. Let me know in the comments. This has been Venwa with a review of Baten Kaitos, Eternal Wings and the Lost Ocean for the Nintendo GameCube. If you enjoyed this video and review, please like and subscribe for more great JRPG content. As always, take care of yourselves, and I hope to see you again next time. Bye bye for now.